What went right? What went wrong this year? I think it's the easiest question to ask.
What went right would be the first 5 games of the year and the last one. That's about it. It really, look, the expectations were higher than this. I know Kentucky was picked to finish 4th in the SEC East after picked to finish 2nd last year, but 7-5 wasn't what the fans were looking for. What went wrong was the offense didn't perform. There was a lot of expectations with Liam Cohen back, with Devin Leary, the highest rated quarterback in the transfer portal, and that stuff didn't work out. Ray Davis had a great year, but overall the offense did not produce enough to get the results Kentucky was hoping for.
John?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Aaron. I mean, what went right was the last game to beat Louisville, especially the season that Louisville has had, and to kind of put a little different spin on the season to beat Louisville was huge. As far as what went wrong, like Aaron said, the offense did not quite live up to expectations. And also, I think defensively, they knew they lost some guys on defense. They thought they had some young guys who could step in there and take their place, and not all that didn't happen quite exactly the way they wanted to. So I think one of the big things they talked about, which they were able to do in the Louisville game, was play complementary football, and they were not able to do that during the year. The offense might have a good game, but the defense didn't hold up, or the defense would have a good game, but the offense wouldn't come through.
Aaron brought up Devin Leary. He threw for 2,400 yards. He had, 23 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, but just a 62.3 overall quarterback rating. That doesn't cut it in the SEC.
No, I mean, and especially when Devin came in with the reputation of being a pinpoint passer. Right. I mean, Will Levis, following Will Levis obviously a big, strong kid with a powerful arm. Leary was supposed to be, but Will had his accuracy problems from time to time. Devin was supposed to be the exact opposite of that. He was not as big as Levis, but he had that, they talked about him, throwing the ball through a mailbox, that sort of guy. And it didn't really turn out that way. I thought he got better as the year went on, and he was better. He was, pretty good in the Louisville game, especially down the stretch, but he was erratic during the year. I always wondered if, he had that surgery last year at North Carolina State, cost him the last half of the season. Maybe he didn't come back as quickly as they thought. Maybe did he change his throwing motion, something like that. But yeah, Leary was good, but I don't think he wasn't up to like we talked about, the expectations that they felt like going into the season.
It was frustrating, and that's why the completion percentage was around 54%, and that's just not going to cut it.
There are 3 games every year on Kentucky's schedule I think are imperative that they win. And they're very winnable games, because to get to right behind Georgia, you've got to beat Missouri, you've got to beat South Carolina, and you've got to beat Mississippi State. They went 1-2 in those games, but should have won all 3.
Yeah, could have. I mean, they were up 14-0 on Missouri. The fake punt kind of turned the momentum. Missouri, I think, though, turned out to be better than anybody thought they would be, especially at the time Kentucky played them, where they end up 10-2.
10-2, yeah.
Yeah, played Georgia really tough. So, yeah, the South Carolina game, to me, I mean, I've been covering them a long time. We've been covering them a long time. That's as disappointed as I've seen Mark Stoops after a game. I mean, he was really down, because I know he felt Kentucky had the better team. They had chances to win that game and didn't win that game. That was a big game for them. So, yeah, those 3, I agree 100%. Those 3 games are key to them, and losing those 2 games, especially the South Carolina game. You beat South Carolina and Louisville at the end of the year. You finish 8-4, going into a bowl game. People feel a lot better about the season.
Do you agree?
100%. I mean, the Missouri game, in hindsight, you can kind of accept it. And even that game, they played pretty well. The score wasn't exactly reflective, I still don't think. Because if you look at the yards that Brady Cook had or Luther Burton, it was 2 of their worst games of the year. They still lose it, whatever. But the South Carolina game, South Carolina was a bad team. We'll just put it how it is. They were a bad football team. They went 5-7. They probably should have been even worse than that. But Kentucky just third down in that game on both sides of the ball. Couldn't get off the field, couldn't stay on it. And that's what cost them that one.
All right, transfer portal. This is the new thing in college football. But I think it's really hurt Kentucky this year on the defensive side, especially when you lose, not so much a transfer portal, but with Wallace leaving to go to the NFL. And then Keaton Wade out of nowhere says, I'm out of here. You lose 2 linebackers. That's a huge hit.
Yeah, it's a tough blow, and I think the Wade situation we kind of saw coming a little bit, especially with the Twins thing. When you have a quarterback that's not playing much, he's probably going to transfer. That's how it is. And Destin Wade.
But to Colorado, where the coach's son is the starter.
I know. We could argue all day about that, if he should move to tight end or whatever with Destin Wade. But losing Keaton hurts. Losing Trevin Wallace early really stings. But as of now, Derek Jackson is supposed to come back. That's a big help. Hopefully he can fill that other inside linebacker position next to him through the portal. If not, maybe Davian Rader could step up and be ready. He actually played pretty well, I thought, when he started against Missouri with Wallace out. But J.J. Weaver still has another year of eligibility and has not decided as of now, so we'll see. That could be a sixth-year guy you get back, kind of like Eli Cox and Marcus Cox.
I thought one of the things that hurt them this year was they lost 2 transfer guys in Jacquez Jones and the Smith kid who was the cornerback, and they really didn't replace those guys. I thought, Wallace and Jackson played well, but not quite to the same level of DeAndre Square and Jacquez Jones, who had all that experience, especially that SEC experience.
You mentioned Vandegrift. Can they get lightning in the bottle twice? Because to me, he's the exact same player that Levis was. Played at a big school, couldn't win the starter's job, transfers in having a handful of plays under his belt.
Vandegrift almost beat Carson Beck out for the job. People kind of forget that with the season that Beck had. They were neck and neck right down to the wire before they ended up going with Beck.
He has the makeup for a guy that Liam Cohen would like. He's 6'3", he can move. I think he's more of a schematic fit than Devin Leary was. Devin Leary played in a more spread tempo offense, and I think that was, going back to the Leary thing, part of the reason he struggled this year.
All right, and final question for you guys. Importance of winning this bowl game. Stoops always talks about how important it is because it really propels him into the offseason. Last year, I think they kind of passed on the bowl game because of, all the injuries they had. Yeah. The importance of this year, especially against a Clemson team.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. You're playing Clemson. They've won 2 national championships since the playoff era. They've been in the playoffs 6 times, 8 ACC titles. This is a name brand. And Brendan Bates said it yesterday during the press conference that guys are electing to play in this game because it is Clemson. Ray Davis is playing because he wants a shot at Clemson. Tavion Robinson, who's declared, wants a shot at Clemson. So it's a big opportunity. I think if they were in the Duke's Mayo Bowl playing Duke with half their team out, it would lose a little luster. But this is a big opportunity.
No, I agree, and I'm one of those guys who think the bowls really don't mean a whole lot because of the circumstances and so forth. I think this year could be different. Like we talked about, they didn't meet not just the fans' expectations, but their own expectations this year. To finish the season with a big win over Louisville, especially after the season Louisville's had, and to beat a name brand like Clemson. And Clemson's played really well down the stretch. I know they've lost 4 games, but they won 4 in a row. They beat North Carolina. They beat South Carolina at the end, but that's a rivalry game.
Right.
So a win over Clemson, if you beat Louisville and Clemson back-to-back, I think gives them a lot of momentum going into next year.
Okay, I lied. I do have one more question. Kentucky announces that they do now have a new receivers coach coming in from Houston. Importance of getting him in and in here early so he can really get into this over the fall.
It's huge, and he's only 29 years old, I believe. Just finished playing at West Virginia in 2016. So Liam Cohen was talking about when he before they hired him, what he wanted in a new receivers coach. He talked about a guy who's played the position, played it well, and is pretty close to his playing days that he could relate with the players. He checks every box that Liam Cohen asked for.
Yeah, and he comes into a room with a lot of talented players.
That's what I was going to say.
Players who need...
How do they take the next step,
How do they take... Yeah, exactly. They need that coaching to get to the next step. And I think this, on paper anyway, this looks like a guy who can do that.
Great. John, Aaron, thank you guys so much for coming out, and good luck, and we'll be reading you in the Cat's Paws and the Herald Leader.